Hello and welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us again on another Monday for Demystifying Post-Production. I'm Simon Walker, and I'm delighted to feature many others this week. So Ellie is back with us, as is Jonas as a special guest, and of course Dustin and Lionel, fresh off their battling with Redshift over the last few weeks. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
So I shouldn't say battling, I should say joyously entertained by Redshift over the last few weeks.
There you go. That's better.
And a hi to everyone in the chat. Hi to Bernd and to Charles and Brian and Jay. Welcome from Newcastle, Jay, and Hannah. And hey, Darren, and hey, Wesley. So thank you for joining us on this 5th Monday in May. Some months we are blessed with 5 Mondays, and this is one of them. And what we're going to do today is we're going to wrap up this whole challenge and just remind you why we decided this crazy idea, Dustin's crazy idea, of doing this Redshift challenge. And the conceit of it really was that we wanted to extend our Redshift knowledge and put ourselves in the position of trying out new things and trying out techniques that we perhaps wouldn't try before, just like when Dustin had that first go with the Captain America zombie, where he was forced to use just one light, which was very entertaining because Dustin's go-to is to use lots of lights and to cheat. And what we'll do is we'll talk about what we learned along the way. And what also it'll be interesting to hear from you in the questions what you learned along the way and if you tried out new things because of this. So that would be really great. And just before we start, I thought I'd mention a couple of things. We've got a whole series of wonderful webinars coming up for you in June, and starting off next Monday with something that we've creatively decided to call Sculpt, Model, Render, and Composite. And we are taking you through a whole journey, a workflow, if you like, through the sculpting of a model. And Anna Carolina is going to be with us, helping us to work in ZBrush. Then Ellie's going to jump into what she creates. She's going to create one of her wonderful mysterious creatures in ZBrush. Then Ellie's going to create an environment for it. And then in week 3, work out some Redshift materials for it. And then in week 4, Chad is going to take that and to composite it into After Effects and use some of the Red Giant plugins. So we wanted just to show you a whole workflow and how you can join the dots and show you some best practices and also some neat little tips that we found out on the way. And as well as that, we have the next in the Hands-On with Maxon series. And this is Level Up with Cinema 4D. So this is taking S26, the version that was recently updated, and jumping into it, but also taking you on that journey. So if you've got some experience already in cinema, we want to help you with that and level it up. And that's over 6 weeks. So this is Ellie and Matt's baby. So Ellie, would you like to say anything special about that one?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the step up from the original beginners course. We were thinking of running that again, and then we sort of decided, because that was so popular and so many people have now seen it on kind of like our YouTube channel, we thought we'd do like a next level of that. So yeah, diving into 26, the new Redshift 3.5, and because I know a lot of people have been commenting on the previous Redshift workshop that we did, saying like, oh, can we see the new like C4D node editor workflow? So we'll be doing a lot of that, as well as, you know, polygonal modeling, simulation, cool MoGraph stuff, and yeah, just like volumes and a bit of like color stuff as well. So it should be fun.
Did you say simulation in there, Ellie? Are there new simulation features in S26 available?
There are, yeah, some nice new dynamic stuff, and also because there are so many cool things in cinema that we didn't get to show in the beginners course, things like particles and forces and sort of like how to layer fields in MoGraph, and the volume builder, which is a lot of fun to kind of mess with. That was why we also wanted to do this next step up, so we can show like even more of like cinema's cool tools.
Fantastic, great stuff. And also, as well as these two brand new courses, we've got some of the old favorites as well. Please come along to Max on Color on Thursday, where Max has got an amazing guest Cullen Kelly, who will be joining us and talking about his extensive ACES color management experience. And then also we've got VFX and Chill on Friday, and we've got another Ask the Trainer kicking off next week as well. So please join us for all of those. And we've got some more information. Regular attendees will know that we like to give you away a free t-shirt, so we'll give you information about that a bit later on. And also Victor in the questions has suggested that we have Spanish subtitles as well. And that's a great suggestion, Victor. We do have Spanish content on Cineversity, and we are planning more of that. And we have been adding Korean and Japanese subtitles to some of the recordings on the Maxon Training Team YouTube, which is where you can check out these recordings every week. So that's something that we can look into as well. Thank you for that suggestion. That's really good. And you can also, of course, take the certification knowledge test in Spanish as well. But let's jump into the matter at hand today, which is the what we're going to do with the Redshift challenge. We've updated some of the models that we've got. So we've got the some old faithfuls that you probably recognize, TIE Fighter and the Gorilla Bust. But we've also added in there another couple of ZBrush sculpts, a warrior helmet, and also Paul Gabori from ZBrush has given us the amazing mech bust sculpt as well. And we're going to ask you to choose between these because Ellie is our candidate today for this. And
I'm not going to say anything because I know what I would prefer, but I feel like if I say it, you guys will deliberately not let me have it.
So do you prefer hard body surfacing or soft body, Ellie?
Oh, I don't really know.
Nothing. Right. And okay, so let's jump into this. Those are the four items, sorry. So let's jump into the poll. I'm going to launch this and let you choose. So here we are. So launch this poll, and we'll give you a minute or so to actually choose for that. So the warrior helmet's something that Paul sculpted as well, isn't it, Ellie?
It is, yeah. Yeah, he was using it for when we did the spring launch. He was kind of taking it from ZBrush, modeling it, and bringing it into C4D to texture it with Redshift. So yeah, we were. I've already messed with that one, so that could work.
Excellent, cool. We've got 65% of you have voted already, and it's very interesting on these things, watching the percentages go up and down and who's voted for what. So we'll give you another 10 seconds or so to choose for that because it's almost 80% have voted. So this is great. And we have a clear winner, I think, which is really interesting. So let's give you the full minute, 5 more seconds. Here we go. And by a country mile, the warrior helmet has won.
Okay.
So that's
nice.
That's pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah, the model is fantastic.
Yes, it is. So let's now choose the tools. And the conceit of this, as we mentioned, is to try and limit the artist to not use a certain technique so that can extend other techniques and try and workarounds and so on. So let's we've updated this as well. Let's launch this poll. So any of your favorites in there, Ellie? Do you like a dome light or a GI?
I'm not saying anything.
Clever.
I'm not saying anything.
So the idea of this is that if you don't want Ellie to be using emissive materials, for example, then vote for that. And similarly for the other ones too.
I like what Andy just said. Can only use crayons. I can get some pen and paper out if you like.
No geometry. Have to do it left-handed.
Take the mouse away. That would be interesting.
Yes, that's true. And some of these have been pointed out that there are some ways around doing some of these, like, and some of that wouldn't necessarily be that difficult. But it depends on your experience if your go-to tool is always the dome light, for example. But let's give you another 5 seconds or so. So here we are. We have another clear winner.
Yeah.
And that is, here we go, the area light.
No area light. Okay.
So how tricky is that? everyone can jump in with this. If you were given that, how would you feel about it?
Yeah, that's one of the most interesting options. I mean, the most difficult.
But the area light?
Yeah, no area light.
Well, I personally would have a harder time with no dome light.
Yeah, that would have been harder for me, I think.
Is given this is the fifth version, is it, or should we just go with area light? Should we suggest another one as well? Well, I'm not being entirely serious, or am I? What do you think, Ellie? Or should we just keep it at area light?
Oh, what about no lights at all?
No lights at all? Don't do this to me, please.
Okay, since it's area light, I think you can get away with just one. So let's do that.
Okay.
All right. So, and I when I'm launching that, I can't see the questions. But all right, so switch off the screen says burned. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Cool. So I'm going to make you a presenter, Ellie. Here we are.
Okay.
Send the screen over to you. And what would be interesting as well is once you've decided, once you get into this, we'll talk for a little bit to give you some thoughts to bring up the model and to just gather your thoughts about what you want to do. But something that I think is worth discussing is the approach, because it'd be interesting to know your thoughts about what you think you might do in this particular instance and what creatively that you're aiming to do, and then what that causes you to have find workarounds for. Because I think that's, Lionel, when you were doing your sessions, then you must have had that in mind to actually then when you were working. Or did it just happen as you were going along, you suddenly realized, oh, I could use this? Or do you have a creative vision as you started?
Well, for the first one, yeah, the Banana Cthulhu, I really knew where I was going. For the second one, it was total. I mean, I didn't know where to go, so I just went along and tried to find where. So yeah, depends on the model. We'll see how Ellie tries with the helmet, which is a very nice model, I think.
Yeah,
very intricate.
Yeah, it's a really nice model. So yeah, previously when I was working on this for kind of the launch, I just wanted to create some really nice like metal textures, and especially with the new standard material in kind of like Redshift 3.5, it was really nice. But I think for this, I might try and do something a little bit more, like take a leaf out of maybe like Dustin's book where he creates these incredible compositions. I might try and do something a bit creative like that and build up like a scene, and then maybe have like the helmet on the floor like it's the end of like a battle or something. Maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll just stick with my material.
Show us.
Show us. Okay. Yeah. So I guess I'm just gonna like get into it and just talk about what I'm doing, as opposed to being like, hey, this does this and this does that. I'm just gonna build this up like I would be, however, not using area lights. Thanks, everyone. It's okay. I've still got my. Is that something I would use? Yeah. So my go-to is like dome light and area lights. But maybe I'm thinking maybe I'll do what I wouldn't normally do, because I like the idea of this kind of being like a Redshift challenge and challenging ourselves to like do new things and learn new things. And so yeah, I just deleted the, I don't know what you'd call it, like the stand that the helmet was on, just because I don't really need that bit. These are the bits that I need. And let me just turn off my work plane.
So you see, everyone, this is the trick. Just delete the things that you don't want to have to work with.
Should I delete everything? No, I'm kidding. I want to work with this model. It's really cool. I'm just going to group all of this together and then just call this my like helmet model. And yeah, let me just build up. I'm going to start building up like a landscape where I can have this on it. So I'm just going to get landscape thing in here, which I think, Dustin, you used last week, didn't you? You sort of like built up a landscape for the gremlin. Is that right?
Yeah. Actually, it brings us to an interesting point. I mean, we could talk about that. So most of pretty much, I guess, all of the weeks that I've presented this month. I've kind of flown off the cuff and did it as we got to the webinar. And so I learned in an interesting way last week that there is, or I did reach the limits of my computer with the Gremlin model and what we were trying to do. And so I ended up corrupting the scene. It was pretty interesting. So when you are able to pull models in, say from ZBrush, whatever, make sure that they're decimated, is kind of as low poly as possible when you bring them in. And so
Yeah.
I've actually been, getting back into ZBrush a bit. It's been years. But this whole process this month has actually inspired me to get back into it quite a bit and start sculpting and having fun in that space and transferring back and forth with GoZ and whatnot. To learn some better workflows and kind of just refresher, to get back into the way that it works. So it's been pretty cool. Maybe one of these months we can share some of the I guess findings that I've had and projects that I've worked on, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Would you say that you, oh, sorry, Ellie, I was just going to ask you, Dustin, would you say that have you experimented then with using less lights given the result, the positive result you had out of that first week?
Definitely. That is something that I have actually kind of been working into my workflows. Instead of running with just my standard light setup that you kind of throw things in and it looks great from the get-go. I've been starting to work with placing lights one at a time now. In most cases, I use 3 lights in a scene to start off, and so I get those set up with the rim lights and the key light, and start to work from there. And it's a little bit different. So using the bounce card and kind of reflector system that we did in week 1 definitely inspired me to work a little bit more on the moody and more dramatic cinematic side.
Yeah, what you did in week 1 with 1 light was absolutely incredible. I think we can all kind of admit that, can't we?
It was fun. It was a challenge to go back. In photography, I remember working with 1 light when I had a single strobe, and working with that. And so it was kind of the same type of deal, but mentally having to go back to, what workflows I used at that time helped out a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like photography is like a good base for all of that work. Especially when you think of restrictions and so on, when you don't have those 2 soft boxes like in your current setup, stuff like that, then you have to improvise and get this light from the other side somehow. So I'm interested, Dustin, what are your system specs? Because you said that you pushed it to its limits.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I always do have a bit more of a tough time when I'm streaming. But I have, what do I have? 16 core Threadripper, 128 gigs of RAM, 2 2080 Ti's is pretty much what I'm running. And it handles a lot of things well. When you throw 10 million polys in a single object into the scene, it definitely got a bit interesting. So I learned a lot. It was, it's not very often that I build out an entire environment, like that, or maybe even a entire small environment's worth of polys into one object. The Gremlin was a bit heavier, and it's definitely one of those cases that I probably should have opened it up before the stream and spent the time that it would have taken to decimate and go down. But, it's meant to be a challenge for a reason this month. And so I just ran with it. So,
I mean, that's exactly the problems that everyone would run into. At some point, you have to open up this model for the first time.
For sure.
Can be in a live show. Can be when you are alone at home.
So Ellie,
Yeah,
you're
we love to do
getting on
these things
quite
on
well
live shows,
with
though,
this.
don't we? We love to put
Absolutely.
ourselves in this position, I think.
Well,
Yeah,
it's good.
I mean,
It's fun, but it's good because it puts you in the same position as we are when we're on creative projects, and that's what we're trying to reflect.
definitely. I mean,
Sure.
and it has been fun. It's definitely been fun to go in and start to, push the setup. I mean, Ellie, like it's already looking good. What HDRI did you use in there?
So I added a dome light, and I've actually changed my mind. So yeah, so I want to do stuff that I don't normally do. So I deleted the dome light, and I've dropped in the sun and sky rig.
Nice.
Because I really like the lighting that you can get on it, and I want to try to create some kind of like end of a battle scene aesthetic where you just have like some ground. I'm going to grab some like trees from the asset browser and then throw like some nice looking textures. But I'm just going to work on like the ground material for now. And actually, for anyone who's like seen any of the sessions that I do, I'm a big fan of ambient CG. So this is just like where I find a whole bunch of like free assets, and they're completely royalty free for you to use for any projects. So I like to try and promote them as much as I can because I use a lot of their materials.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to create this. Yeah, they're pretty great. Yeah. So I'm just going to create this like ground material and then maybe work on like some trees in the background and then get to our actual metal textures on here. Hopefully in, 45 minutes.
We've had some art direction advice for you. Amy has jumped in and suggested that you make the sky blood red, Ellie.
Yeah, we could do that. I can do that. Let me just set this ground up and then I will absolutely do that. Yeah, so any like suggestions, requests, let me know because it will be, it'll be really fun if it's interactive with you guys. And same to, Dustin, Lionel, Simon, and Jonas. Let me know if you have any thoughts. So I'm just going to drop in a bunch of these different textures.
There was one question from Brian who wanted to know, what is Ellie's spec this week? What are your system specs?
Here you go.
Ta-da!
So yeah, Intel iMac with a 5700 XT graphics card is what I'm currently working on right now.
So yeah, it's interesting to see Redshift is working with the Radeon, with AMD hardware.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And hopefully soon I will be talking about some other hardware as well once I have it set up.
That's a tease.
As a tease.
Is it the topic we were talking about earlier, Ellie?
No, it's not actually. It is a slightly different topic.
Oh, okay, exciting. Sorry, everyone.
Spoiler alert, Redshift works on a variety of different graphics cards and operating systems. And most recently, it works on AMD on Windows as well, on the new W6800 series that they've been running or introducing. So that's quite interesting. But you've also got, I think, an M1 machine kicking around somewhere, Ellie. So, and that's a laptop versus this one with the larger screen, which is probably why you're doing it on the iMac at the moment.
Yeah, I kind of go in and out. But yeah, I've got M1 Max, MacBook Pro, which I've been kind of like testing out and working on. And yeah, for me, it works. They're so like fantastic to use. I think it's getting used to the smaller screen, but it is. I get better render time. So now a lot of what I do is I'll like be working on a project on my Intel iMac, and then I'll have it rendering on the MacBook Pro. So I kind of have the advantage of the two.
That's funny. Usually it's the reverse. You're working on a laptop and then render on the big computer, and in here you just do the opposite.
Yeah, you know me. I like to do things as wrong as I can.
We've had another art direction. Charles has taken on Amy's suggestion about the blood red sky, and saying blood red at the horizon, leading to light pink at the azimuth. And in case you weren't familiar, and I had to look this up, the azimuth is the direction of a celestial object from the observer, expressed as the angular distance from the north or south point of the horizon. So at the top of the screen.
Okay. That could be cool. Let me just want a bit more.
We like to learn new terms on these things, so thank you for that, Charles.
Right, let me just match these.
And Drake, thank you for that suggestion. Drake's asking if the models are available either on the asset browser or whether we're going to make them available on a link. And that's a great question. We'll talk to our friends at ZBrush and see if they would like to make those, because we collected them from a variety of sources, and some are available at different places online. I can't remember whether those were available at a cost or whether they did that as a proprietary thing. So thank you for that, Drake. We'll look into that and let you know. And if you tune in on a future Demystifying, that's where you'll probably find out what we're doing, or just check the recording, because then we can put the links in the YouTube description for the recordings.
Okay, right, so let's work on this sky. Right, I have a question for the guys. How can I set a gradient as my sky?
The easiest with the Redshift sky would be to use in your sky, you have the ground color, and then but it wouldn't be exactly the gradient you would want, I guess. Yeah, to change your ground color, and then using here the Redshift red blue shift, it kind of work. I think it's going to change the ground color too. I'm not sure. We'll see. And yeah, the ground color doesn't make much. There is not really a big effect. Huh?
No, there is not. Is it because would it work better with like a brighter color? Nope.
No, I'm not sure. I think to have the right gradient, totally different gradient, I think you can change the model. There is one model which is not realistic, but you can fine tune the gradient. No. Okay, so I guess that would be a dome light with the custom gradient.
Yeah, pretty much how I would do that.
Doesn't seem to work here. The red blue shift. It's not precise enough.
No, it's not. I mean, I kind of like it. Kind of like that though. Maybe just like put it down a bit.
What you could do is just kill this lighting and maybe use a dome light, but only as a background.
Just the backlight. Yes, let's do that then.
This is an interesting question for the panel, but this is choosing these things, whether you think they look right or not, also has to be cross-referenced with what the client has suggested. So how far do you take this when you're working on a commercial job? Do you tell the client, no, actually this looks better and this is the way you should do it because that's what you prefer, or do you try and keep within their brief, or is it a mixture?
Oh man. Anybody else?
You started.
So, you know, when I'm working on projects, I guess it varies on what my response would be. You know, a lot of times, we'll say freelance projects where I'm the only person, you know, maybe working on it, and I may not be outsourcing, you know, the tasks to a team. You know, there's definitely times where I will reach out and say, you know, hey, this is what I'm thinking. You know, even giving the option of, hey, this is specifically what you requested, and this is what, you know, my vision kind of leads me towards for the project. So you can present both. If you get lucky and you have, you know, clients that are very trusting right from, right off the bat, based on maybe your portfolio or your previous work. It's quite a bit easier to navigate those, those situations. If you're working with larger brands that already have, say set style guides and different look and feels, mood boards, sometimes you just have to do it and just, and follow along. So it really depends on the type of project, the scope of the project. I think this is why workflows or processes, stages in a project are so important. For myself personally, I like to get through we've kind of talked about it here a bit actually. I like to work with clay renders, setting up the camera and composition, and then move into lighting and then into materials, and kind of setting the the stage for a successful project when you're working with clients. And so if I do want to add anything a bit more creative, it's usually so early on that they have a chance to say yes or no before it's really, me just kind of going for it and then losing a lot of time on a project. So it's all about, client conversation, consultation, and education. So you'll find with, clients, say in my space with product rendering, who have maybe never used 3D or CGI before, and this may be their first time. It's a lot easier to educate them on the processes that I like to use best, and to get them, acquainted with that workflow, than a company whose art directors are in 3D all the time. And they've got a set standard way that they like to do it. So yeah.
My experience is that the more they know, the less they ask for to change. It must be easy. The computer's doing all the work. So just this change will be instant, won't it? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Hannah's had an interesting suggestion. Hey, Hannah, thanks for suggesting this. She was talking about how Dustin was using reflectors in an earlier week, and whether you would consider using that in a shoot. And by the way, as you mentioned, Hannah, I think you got it exactly right. The reflectors is the English word for it. It's absolutely reflecting light.
Yeah. So let me see here. I'm kind of reading the question. So you're asking if that's something I would do in a real world shoot. Yes. So back when I was using a single light, when I was getting into photography, I would use a single light source and then use foam core boards to bounce and reflect light, to mimic other light sources, or even accentuate and fill. It's 100% bouncing and reflecting light is something very real world in photography. In fact, we have it very easy in 3D because we can use light linking and exclude and include certain objects from lights, where in the photography world we have to basically rig up an entire scene to work properly, and a lot of times that can lead to more post-production. So 3D is definitely the route to go with that.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing Photoshop, we didn't have a lot of gear, so I use styrofoam. I don't know how you say it, styrofoam. So a big board to reflect light, because we didn't have any money. And it was always, I wish I could have this light and this light, and we write magazine showing a lot of wonderful gear. So when I started 3D, I was like, I can do whatever I want. I just don't care. I can put 10 light, 20 lights, as strong as I want. It was, so easy.
Did you surface something as styrofoam then and use that as a reflector?
That's what I did. Only at some point I have only one light. Yeah, I even did some lighting with non-professional lighting, so the color balance was awful. Oh yeah.
We have some more art direction coming in. Both Anders and Charles are suggesting that there needs to be some more damage because the helmet is the centerpiece. I think you're absolutely right, Anders. And Charles was suggesting to make a dent in the helmet and make a hole for damage as well.
Oh,
He said also,
okay.
yeah, it was difficult to do during the webinar. I think.
Yeah, so it's got
That,
some,
that
I don't know if we can see if we come in here, it's got some kind of like marks and damage like this. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to work on like the actual metal material and hopefully can create the effect of damage that way instead of having to worry about remodeling, because yeah, that would take a very long time.
We're pretending
Don't
we're the client
necessarily
and we
have.
put you on a deadline for another 24 minutes time, aren't we?
Yes. So yeah, I'm just going to work on like creating some like dirt and different textures and scratches on this actual, just in the material itself. That's what I like to do. I like to work in the material to do this stuff because I'm not much of a modeler, which we all know.
We would argue separately against that, Ellie, but it's also interesting how everyone's got their different take and their different preference and their different experience and what they like to do. So what you're saying is that you prefer the materials rather than to modeling, but that's an interesting one as well, because then you wouldn't necessarily approach everything the same way. So if you were doing this, Jonas, for example, how might you have been approaching this?
Sorry, I got distracted at the moment. So we're talking about like adding the damage or what?
Yeah.
So, and in the 24-minute scenario or in a full production scenario?
I think in a fast way. In this particular case, we're talking about working quickly and using it. So you have the same limitations as Ellie.
Yeah, so the quickest way to do it, like in the geometry, would be to use like the volume builder workflow. But again, that's really heavy then. I would add scratches and stuff, and for creating a hole, maybe try using an alpha, although I don't think that this will look convincing. Well, it depends on what you do, like with the edge of the hole then. So my workflow would be a trial and error thing, definitely, especially with these time constraints.
What are you putting together here?
I'm forgetting about the time. I'm just sort of like working, and I'm like, well, I should probably talk about what I'm doing.
You just have to go for it. Just go for it, Ellie.
It's sort of like winging it, really. But yeah, I'm just gonna blend like a whole bunch of like texture maps and materials together to hopefully try and create a cool-ish looking thing. So yeah, so far all I've done is set up like the new Redshift standard material, which is a really nice kind of workflow, especially when working with metalness, because it just has like this metalness like value. So I just threw that up to 1, and then the color here will define like almost like the color of the metal, and then we can do some reflection color as well, which I may do in a little bit. And then yeah, I'm just going to use like a dirt texture map inside the asset browser. I'm a big fan of the asset browser. A lot of the material blending I do, I just take textures from that, because then everyone has access to them as well. And yeah, they're just really nice and detailed. And so I've thrown that as my roughness, my reflection roughness, and also using it as the same bump map. And I'm using the ramp because I don't want really like harsh values. And so normally, it's looking at the 100% white and 100% black, and that is what it's setting the roughness values to. And those were really too like contrasting. So I've just used the ramp to pull down the blacks and pull up the whites. And so now we're not getting any 100% values of 0 or 1 of roughness. Hopefully that made sense.
It does.
Cool. And yeah, so now I'm just going to blend. I'm going to create some scratches first, I think. Or not first, second. And I'm just going to steal the exact same material that I've made, but I'm going to make it like a slightly, what do we want to go for? A slightly different color version. maybe a bit
Anders
lighter.
was also suggesting a displacement map with big scratches on it. See,
Yep.
like minds.
Like mine. Let me just pull the roughness up as well, just because I want to be able to see it. But I want them to be like not too crazy obvious. Maybe we'll faff with another ramp in a little bit.
So I just
I'm
got
just gonna throw this. Yeah.
an idea about the hole. So yeah, if you combine an alpha with a displacement map, you can actually make it look really convincing. I just didn't think about the displacement map for some reason when I answered earlier, but it might work.
Do we have one in the asset browser? That is the main question.
Mm.
What?
We have an alpha of a hole. Do we have one like already?
I would use like a Maxon Noise for it.
Maxon Noise, yeah.
And then just clamp it.
Okay, yeah.
Because then you can, well, you can use the Maxon Noise, and then you can create two versions of it using using two ramp nodes, and one goes into displacement and the other one into opacity.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay, let's do that after. However, is Jonas, this is for you because I know you're having the same issue. Is Maxon Noise still sometimes crashing cinema? Not that we, should be talking about that, but it has been for me when I solo it.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay.
There has been a hotfix last Wednesday which fixed the issue for me.
I think it's a Mac thing. On PC, no problem with that.
Okay, I'll give that a go. I'll save it beforehand just in case.
Yeah, so everyone, if you are on the Mac, make sure that you are on, what was the version number? I think 26.014 is the hotfix. Is it?
Yeah.
Let me double check. Okay, you said yeah. That's my double check.
God, don't take my word for it. All right, cool. So I've set up these little like faint scratches, and I'm actually going to, I want them to be like on my bump map as well. And so I'm just going to like blend them together using like a bump map blender, which is a really nice way if you have like two different sets of bump map textures or noises or whatever, we can combine them quite nicely. So I can get a little bump blender, and I'm going to drop it in between my bump maps and then my standard material node here. And then I'm just going to grab another one, and I'm going to plug my scratches into that. And then we'll work on this alpha, because I think I'm going to need your guys' help with that to go through it. Cool, bump input there, and then I can just put a value, like a blending weight value, and it now should blend between the two. I hope. Let me just set a value. Let's do a negative value for these.
So I just looked it up. So the hotfix is 26.015.
015.
Yeah.
015.
Yeah, Darren found it just earlier.
Okay.
So, but now we're sure. Double checked.
Perfect. That is good to know. Okay, right. So yeah, So what am I doing? I'm going to create the alpha with a Maxon Noise, right? Save.
Yes.
Just in case. Right. Let me grab Maxon Noise. And see, I don't think I've updated. So I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way.
Do it.
I plug it into the surface.
You should have had this as a technique that you weren't allowed to use.
Oh, yeah, setting up noises without using solo mode.
Without soloing.
Yeah.
Okay, right, God. So I need to try and find something that's going to look like a hole, aren't I?
Aren't you a booyah person?
I am a booyah,
Booyah!
person. Should we do
Let's
booyah?
try booyah.
Only because it's the most fun thing to say ever. Okay, right.
Maybe if you invert it, it might work when you invert it.
Yeah. What does it invert the colors or invert with a ramp?
Invert.
What would you
I
do?
would invert the colors here first,
Yeah.
and then use the ramp to refine it.
We got a great question from Malik here. Ellie, how do you manage the pressure of creative input when working in the middle of a project like this? In fact, that's a question for everyone, because everyone's jumping in with instructions, they're all making a sense. But how are you managing with this?
I like it. So I like the whole kind of like collaborative workflow, especially with like these guys are like amazing artists, amazing trainers, just like they all have such great inputs. And then like the people watching as well, like we're all artists and designers at the end of the day. And especially on like a live show like this, where it's more fun to be interactive. Like I'm enjoying people with their ideas. And plus like this isn't something I'd have thought of. And so getting to do it live and getting that pressure, I'm going to be learning something just like everyone else, which I think is really nice. So that's
You
how
cannot test it. It needs to be good in the first place, right?
Or don't be afraid to fail. That would be my tip. So I'm not afraid to be like, hey, I don't know how to, change the gradient of a sky. Can someone tell me how? I like these guys know. I ask these guys questions constantly. I guess it's a benefit of working at Maxon that they're all just like a Teams message away. And maybe they hate that, but I always have so many ideas and questions for them. But that's how I learn.
You can hear everyone jumping in and saying, "No, we love it, Ellie. Ask us more questions."
I loved the pure silence after that. they probably hate it. Tumbleweed.
No. Tumbleweed.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to make this look like. I need more black. Is it me or is it just not updating? Is it? It's starting to struggle.
Are you reaching your limit? Ha 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 ha.
What emotionally or?
Any of it. Oh man. So, speaking of being under pressure, I think it's interesting. I enjoy, the same as Ellie. I enjoy being under pressure. It's part of the reason why, this month, for example, I didn't test out any of the models really before we started the sessions. It was meant to be a bit more real world and, and being able to have everybody see, the small bits of pressure and sweat that were happening like last week when we could barely work with a gremlin model. Those are good times because, not only do you get to see that it happens to us, but then we also get to talk and chat about, why it's happening or, different workarounds. And that often leads into maybe deeper discussions about other things that we may want to know about, or, what I would do from that point. When we're teaching, it often gets tough, in the webinars to talk about what we would do, to push something further. And so when we have moments like we did last week, it allows us to just stop and actually have a conversation. And so it wasn't too bad.
Speaking of, I have a question. Do I need to have an inverted ramp for the displacement version? Yeah?
No.
No?
No.
Use the same ramp? No?
No, not the same ramp, but it doesn't have to be inverted. I would for the opacity, I would do it like
Crunch it.
sharper, like
okay. Let me get this out of the way.
And then you can create a copy.
Yeah.
of the same thing and then fade it out in the copy, but towards the white.
Okay.
And this will probably give you a good starting point for the displacement.
Okay, so fade it more towards the white like this. Kind of
Exactly.
thing. And then let's go into my displacement. Let me turn it on.
Oh, you need a displacement node.
Oh.
Yeah.
Speaking of dealing with pressure on a live show.
Yeah. I didn't see it either, so.
Oh dear. It's been a
So
long day.
now
Can I open that? Okay, cool. And let me just actually now turn my displacement on.
One thing I would also do in the displacement node is to remap it, because right now it's going from 0 to 1. I would set the new range from -1 to 0 so that it gets
inside.
pushed
Yeah.
in.
Yes, exactly.
And new range max should be 0.
There you go. It's gonna kick in. Okay, that is a little bit too much.
Oh,
Is it? Is it really?
I mean, I'm happy with it. Nah, still.
Ellie, what do you feel your creative vision is for this? I mean, is it a helmet that's been lying down on the floor for a long time, or has this just happened? Do you want to reference that or tell that story in the material? Where do you think you're going with it?
I don't know. I think that would like if let's say I was working on this as like something I actually was creating, not during like a live show under pressure with only like 45 minutes to do it. I think I would decide that as I go. Yeah, like because you might end up creating something, and I don't know. This is for me. Like this is how I work. Sometimes I'll just see what happens, like based on the materials I create or based on kind of like the vibe that I'm getting from it. And unless someone specifically told you, okay, it needs to be like looking like this and looking like that if it's for a brief, but if it's just you exploring and being creative, especially for me, I'm guided by what happens inside of cinema and inside of like Redshift. I don't know whether it's different for the guys, but yeah, I see what happens like as I go through a different creative process, because sometimes, like Dustin was saying earlier before we started the session, that like he created this particular thing and then added something to it and it just didn't like match the vibe at all.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, you shouldn't necessarily limit yourself to what you have in mind straight away. I don't know, the guys might have a different opinion.
No, I'm pretty much on the same route here. That's
Yeah.
Short
answer that time. Yep.
So the one thing that I notice here is that we can now, or can we? Yeah, I think that's the back side of the hole. So maybe we can get rid of that back side too. So do you see that in the like in the big hole, like
this
at
one?
The front, that there is
Yeah.
some. This is the whole part, and then
stuff.
a little bit up there is the. I think that's the back side of them, like the inside polygons that are that we can see here. And
here, yeah.
if we could add some sort of a like backface culling effect to mask these out, I think that would help. And there's a node for that, which is called, I think it's a ray switch.
Ray switch, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And you have to put it after the material, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so on this whole setup, yeah?
Yeah.
And I'm putting it here or here?
You can also layer it together with the ramp that is going into emission or opacity. I mean.
Okay.
That's normally. I was going to say that's normally how I would do it. Is using a layer to go in.
So layer it with That one, right?
Yeah. There we go.
Okay,
That's
and then
number
ray
one.
switch.
And a ray switch.
Yeah, the
Okay.
ray switch goes after the material.
And the
shader
ray
switch.
switch.
Or is it the shader switch?
No, I meant the ray switch, because
Yeah, it's
the ray switch
yes.
allows you so now you have to enable front back. It's the topmost checkbox, and the front color is set to white, and you need to set the back face color to black, and this will create a mask for polygons that are facing towards you are white, and polygons that are facing away from you are black. And if you use that
Okay.
in the opacity, you create an alpha that is the same thing as backface culling.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just create
So
a backface
how am I
culling.
blending them together?
You multiply them.
Just multiply, yeah.
Yeah.
Next week with Learn with Ellie.
No, this is great.
We're all
Amy
learning at the
says,
same
poor
time."
Ellie.
Oh dear. As long as everyone's having a good time, that's all that matters.
I do.
We do.
You know, I feel like you are best kind of taking on the vibe of what this month is about. Like this is actually really good. I like all of the feedback that's been happening in the chat. Like there's been a lot of good stuff, and so I feel like those were some interesting curveballs that were thrown this week versus previous weeks.
Yeah, Amy just wrote poor Ellie.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Amy. I'm loving it. I am. No, I am. I love the suggestions, and especially with stuff that I don't know about. Like I said, I'm learning along with like you guys all this like cool stuff. So I don't think that's done what you thought, because this.
No, actually not.
This might actually be geometry though, like actual geometry underneath. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So what is
Delete
if
it.
you solo the ray switch? What's happening? That's interesting. Can you disable the let's see, the wire that goes from the color layer to into the opacity? Just
Yes.
right click and
That one.
yeah. Well, of course it doesn't do anything. Didn't think about that before.
Is it? I mean, is it? Is it geometry? Can we just select it?
Yeah, I think it's just geometry, isn't it? Underneath. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, just select it and delete.
There.
Look at it. There it is.
See,
So that's a
here's
very
an alternative. Delete.
Oh yeah. So amazing. Nailed it.
There we go. That's what I wanted to have. Cool. Thanks.
I love how it's like when you think about, and this is partial. I mean, it happens to me all the time, where I feel like I overthink processes, right? Instead of just like clicking and deleting geometry that I don't need, I will totally find a whole workaround to a problem that's not really a problem. It happens all the time. So
Cool,
that's something that has not changed from being like a beginner to this world. It always gets more complicated.
Yeah, sometimes the simplest solution is the best one.
Yeah.
We just thought we'd do that whole thing just to teach that lesson.
Yeah, exactly. It was 100% planned, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, however, I will say though that ray switch does work. It works great for many masking bits, but that one wasn't it.
That one wasn't it, because the situation was not a masking situation, but a too much geometry situation.
Yep.
I'm very aware that we are like coming close to the time.
Oh, you're over. It's
Oh well.
mission failed, Ellie.
Right.
No, this is going great. I mean, we're only a minute over. I feel like Lionel and I.
Oh yeah.
You're crushing it compared to where we were earlier
Yeah.
weeks. So.
I had so many other ideas, but yeah, I wanted to add like trees and grass and etc. We could do that, couldn't we? Put some grass in. Just to kind of finish it off.
As everyone knows, we never overrun. So I'm sure we could find you a few moments to get some grass in or something else in there. But you raised an interesting point, Ellie, about the fact that when do you stop on a project? And we've talked about this in the past. When does somebody take your painting away from you? And sometimes it's the client, because then that's the time. But there's always a difference between executing something and with what you had in mind and actually what it ends up being, which is part of the creative process, of course.
That can be a curse also. If you're working on your own piece, you don't know how to stop, and you end up messing up everything. That happens to me sometimes. A client can be a good way to know when to stop, because for my part, I'm never happy with what I'm doing. So at some point, I end up destroying what I never finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually. It's funny. I'm actually dealing with that right now. On this a little piece that I'm working on, and I always tell people, it's like finished and not perfect, right? And if you like really push for perfection, like you're never going to finish a project, and so it pretty much halts you. But at the same time, as creatives, it's a very hard threshold for us to overcome. So as I'm doing like creative projects, I feel like oftentimes my biggest area to like call it quits is actually in 3D, like when I'm working in cinema, because I work in Photoshop a lot for post-production and I love that space. And so Photoshop for me is often faster. If there's something, for instance, I think it was the zombie from week 1, the Captain America zombie. I had thought about doing drool and different, kind of stuff in 3D, and I was like, I could just paint that in Photoshop very quickly. I can spend all the fun times working with the volume builder and getting everything, looking nice. But it just wasn't time conducive, so I did it in post. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting threshold there.
So I just wanted to say that the grass that you just added adds so much to the scene. It's fantastic.
Yes, it does.
And my super lazy grass material. Wow.
Well, it works because it's out of focus.
That's why we love out of focus.
Yes. God bless.
You can hide things away.
It saved me here, to be honest. Yeah. Maybe I can throw this on. How does this look on here?
Just put a massive lens flare over the center and then call it good.
Oh.
I mean, it's funny, but it works. Okay, let's not hate on lens flares. You're giving away one of my biggest secrets. Just poof, lens flare, and it's fixed. It's done.
Right,
has lens flare become an official verb in English, in the English language? To lens flare something?
Lens flare, yes.
Yeah.
Meaning to hit deadline.
Even in other language, in French, we really don't have something for lens flare, so we say add a flare in French, of course. We don't have the word. I mean, we do have some words for that, but it doesn't work, so we just use lens flare. So here, you're replacing everything with alt.
I wish we did that in German, but of course in German we have a word for everything.
Yes, you just add words together. That's great with German.
Yeah. So the direct translation from the German word would be something like f-stop spots or something. Something like that, yeah.
Can we just talk about how Ellie completely crushed this in like an hour? She has a piece that like is actually here.
I
Yes.
feel like I didn't really. I was just like the hands. It was all of your suggestions and all of the people in the questions area. It was like all them. I was just like pressing the buttons.
But you have a near finished piece. I feel like this is a huge feat compared to where Lionel and I mean, and maybe it's just me. I think it's just me. Because it definitely, yeah, it's nice to see a finished, or near finished. What could be a finished piece?
Let's say it's a finished piece.
The deadline
Is there anything you would add, Ellie?
Yes. So I would probably add some maybe trees in the background, but like no leaves, just sort of like those sort of like
The trees.
ones that you see in like the desert or something. Would be quite cool. That's maybe what I.
So if you were to take this into say Photoshop for post, what would you do there?
What would I do? Okay, so yeah, my Photoshop skills are about like 1% of yours, Dustin, but I always do. That's like my go-to, no matter what I'm creating, even if it's like just a hero image for one of our live sessions, I will always bring it into Photoshop just to do some kind of tweaking, because it's what I'm more used to. I love like camera raw filter to do some like color correction. And ever since we did the December sessions together, I now use like masks, like the linear mask and the radial mask to change some certain things. Exposure I mess with. Yeah, colors I tend to perfect, because I'd rather perfect them in post and have to worry about necessarily doing them in here. Not too much though, really. Yeah,
There's not a whole lot. I mean, it's I like it. I like it. Andrew says add a mouse crawling out.
Oh my god, that'd be a great idea. I don't
It
think
would be a pretty cool idea.
I like that. Lens flare is the visual cowbell from Matthew.
We do actually have this. Is this, please, is this a scene? Oh god. Oh man, okay.
It's
man,
perfect for the style as well.
Should I throw this in?
Go for it.
You can never have too much, apparently.
Where is this going to come in? Oh, here we go. Oh, I should really change the textures, but I'm just not going to yet. Right, let me
put it out of focus. Then it's fine.
I was gonna say there's the other cheat. You just throw it right in the foreground or in the background.
Should I drop it in? Wait, so let's go. Hang on. Can I get the? No.
Done.
Not doing it for me.
It's a
giant mouse
ghost
on
mouse.
the mountain in the background.
Let me try and actually put it in here.
This is what Lee was saying. Great depth of field. Translation, well hidden.
Yeah, the material is not compatible. It's too bad.
It's not.
And as Hannah's saying, it should be in the helmet.
You might try to run the converter, maybe.
I was just about to suggest it, but it's a reflectance material, isn't it?
It is, yeah, so it won't work, will it?
No.
Put it in the color channel first and then convert it.
Oh, what? Okay.
Yeah, reflectance and then. Oh no. Luminance.
Can't I just copy that one? Put that in here?
Yeah.
Oh.
There you go.
Hang on a minute. hang on a minute. Right, okay. Material tools, convert material. The suspense.
So Ellie, what you just did is something that is a really cool trick. You just replaced the material by holding down the Alt key and dragging and dropping a material onto another material to completely replace it.
I did. So I'll do it now because I'll do this as our RS eyes. So yeah, this was you showed me this actually after I spent a very long time doing it by hand. Yeah, you can just hold the Option key over the material.
Yeah, Alt.
And it replaces it. Love that trick.
I think that was one of your quick tips, Jonas.
Was it? It's gonna be in a few weeks from
I'm
now.
sure.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, spoiler! I've stolen the quick tip thunder.
Didn't do it already? Oh, I
But
thought.
I'm also going to show another way how to do that.
Oopsie.
That's cool.
Here we go. We've got our little.
That's really cool. I love it.
Mousey mouse in there now.
Amazing.
Cool. I'll probably end it there. Otherwise, I would just sit and play with this for a very long time.
As Anders says, the law of diminishing marginal returns.
We can spend another 4 Mondays on suggestions how you would finish it up in like Photoshop or so, or After Effects. Yeah. How you would animate it.
That'd be a good one. That'd be a good one. Cool, animate the grass, like in the wind. A little mouse guy running away.
I really love it. It tells a good story.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it really does.
That's awesome.
We thought about.
I'm happy with it. I'll take it. I'll take it.
We thought about a new series with artistic constraint like black and white or film noir, or that could be cool.
Oh.
Or neon.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
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 A particular style.
We need to discuss this.
I like that
would be an interesting one. Have we got time for a very quick last question, Ellie?
Okay.
Andy was just asking about scattering the grasses and how you did that.
Yeah. So let me move out of the way. I use the RS matrix scatter, which is just the matrix object with a Redshift object tag on. So it's already kind of like optimized, ready for this workflow. And then inside the matrix object, I set it to object because I wanted to scatter the stuff across like a particular thing, which in our case was the landscape. And so I threw that landscape in, which was this one inside of here. And then you can choose how many of like matrices there are going to be, and that in turn will be how many bits of grass that we then see in our render. And then inside of the Redshift object tag, we can set, so it's intelligent enough to know that it's on like the RS matrix, and you can decide which mode you want. So you can have point instances, sphere instances, etc. But in our case, we set it to custom object. I grabbed a bunch of the dry grass from the asset browser, dropped it in there, and then everywhere where there is a little matrice is now going to be one of our custom objects.
And the cool thing about this is that you can even adjust the distribution when you change it from like sequential to random, and then you can adjust the seed. So if you like the placement of those objects, then but not the which grass is at which matrix, you can simply play with the seed in the RS object tag.
Yeah, and then you can still use like your effectors on it because it's like mographable. New word.
Yeah.
That's a new verb.
Love it.
Mographable. Yes.
Mographable. So yeah, we could throw like a, I don't know, like a random effector. Maybe we wouldn't want it to be doing position, but we could want like having some like random rotation, and then even like throwing some scale. We could do like 0.2, and so now we're going to have even more kind of randomization on our custom objects. Yeah, RS object tag, very, very cool to use. And if you use like the particle emitter, you can throw that on there and then set objects as like particles, which I've been doing lately. A lot of fun.
Right, can I grab the screen from you, please, Ellie?
You can. Let me just say that.
I'm going to make me the presenter. Here we go. We had a couple of last minute questions. We had a request for the link for next week's session. And so I've just gone on to maxon.net, gone down to events, and then you can just go scroll down to what's happening on the 6th of June. Here we go. Sculpt, model, render, composite. That was one question we had, and I put that link in the questions as well. And also the other thing I was trying to find, which I did find in the end, was the hair session that Darren did a little while ago. So if you jump over to the Maxon Training Team on YouTube, just type in hair on the search box, and that will bring up one of the hair, a series of the hair ones that we've been looking at as well. And so that specific one, I think that's the one, Darren, that we were talking about. So that's a quick way to get to it. And then Amy was saying, enough of your yakking, where's the t-shirt link? So if you go into the handout section of, well, where it is, here it is, handout section of the webinar software, you get this PDF. And so this has the link in it. So it's the Maxon merch store, but it's the Ask the Trainer section, and it has a password to it, which this month is Redshift Challenge. And that's where you can go in, and then you can go and choose a t-shirt that you would like to be sent to you. We can give you a free t-shirt, but the way that the merch store is set up, you have to pay for shipping, but it's only about €3 or €4 or $3 or $4, depending where you are. So choose one of those, please, as a thank you for going on this journey with us. And also, as a thank you, I just wanted to say thank you to Ellie for bearing with us and doing such an amazing job this week. It was just fantastic what you managed to pull off.
It was good fun. Yeah, I feel I wasn't part of the previous week because I've been kind of like busy and stuff. So I wanted to join in with the guys because they've been absolutely killing it. And yeah, I was like, hey, I want some of that.
That's really great.
I'm glad you were back. Yeah, I feel like it was a good way to end the month.
Yeah, definitely.
Good fun, definitely.
And it's interesting, I know we've joked about this, but it is interesting to see different people's take on it and different approaches and a slightly different version of the same thing that we've been doing each week, which is what we really wanted to do and just encourage new things. And as you said earlier, Ellie, I agree with you. The biggest release I had in my career was getting used to, or getting the courage to say, I don't know. And as soon as I did that, everything fell into place and life was so much easier. Because somebody will know, you'll find out somewhere, and it's getting that to that creative place. And then there's just another tool in your arsenal, isn't it? So definitely encourage that.
Yeah, definitely.
And thank you for all the nice, kind comments that you've been putting in on the session, and how much you love that piece. And I think you said it right, Dustin. Ellie's had this almost, well, it is a finished piece, and it stands up in its own right and doesn't need playing around too much after the event. So I think you ended up nailing it amongst all of the different sessions, Ellie.
That was thanks to all of your suggestions. Definitely.
Team effort. It's a team victory.
It was for sure a team effort. A nice roundup. But yeah. It was interesting to see where it was going, but all the suggestions just, I think, made it what it was.
Absolutely. So we'll see you on the next one of these. You know where to go onto the page, onto the events page. Here we go, and pick and choose the ones that you would like. But also, jump in and find out something that you don't know, because we're covering all sorts of different topics on here. So we'd love to see you on those. But until the next one, thank you for spending this time with us, and we'll see you soon. Right, thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.